Hello, Disney fans. I hope you're having a wonderful holiday season. Sometimes the holidays can be stressful. There's a lot going on in the world, and no doubt everybody watching has a lot going on in their personal lives too. It's the holidays, stress happens. But beyond that stress, there is just a joy to the season, and sometimes the best way to recapture that is with humor. And the funniest Christmas movie I know is Home Alone. I have loved this movie since it first came out when I was a kid. I remember watching it with my parents and my grandparents, and my grandpa especially thought this was the most hilarious movie. My Some of my family have said that it starts out a little slow. I can't remember whether that was my grandpa who thought that it started out slow, whether it was my mom or dad, but I can kind of see their point looking back on it, but I can also, upon reviewing it with an adult's eye and looking at more than just the humor, but looking at it as how the story was crafted, I can really see some real genius behind this movie. I have loved rewatching it to make this video, and so I have a lot to talk about because I love this movie so much, which means in order to do it justice, I'm going to have to divide this review into two parts. Part one will be going up to the part that everyone remembers, the traps. And the traps will make up my second video of this two-part review. So if you're not interested in this one and want to go just to part two with the traps, that's fine, I understand. I'm sure that you'd be hard pressed to find someone who hasn't seen this movie or at least knows all the main jokes of it. Well, the movie doesn't start out all that funny. It begins with the McAllister family having a lot of chaos while they're all trying to get ready to go to spend Christmas in Paris. The youngest member of the McAllisters, Kevin, has been going through a lot of turbulence with his family. For one thing, nobody will tell him what he needs to pack. He's an 8-year-old kid. He's like, okay, what should I bring? And it's not that he is dumb. We find this out very quickly throughout him facing the obstacles he has to face on his own, but he's just looking for help the way any little kid would. What do I pack? And his family laughs at him for that. He runs into one little difficulty after another. His uncle won't let him watch a movie he wants to watch because it's a little too grown up for a kid Kevin's age, let's say. Well, things come to a head when Kevin tries to get some dinner and everybody's already eaten up the plain cheese pizza. His brother decides to be an extra jerk about it and offers to provide him with some pizza. This is where Kevin finally loses it. Get a plate. Now, see, this is what I mean about this being a well made story from a storytelling point of view. They didn't have to include the little detail that Kevin's passport got thrown away. It wouldn't have mattered because he got left home anyway. But they include that little detail to make it clear that no matter what, Kevin wasn't going to go with his family on this trip. Another detail that they include is something that Kevin is observant enough to notice. A supposed policeman who's checking on all the properties to make sure that they're all safe, which I don't get how any of the adults were dumb enough to fall for that. Policemen don't go door to door checking on places. At least they don't knock on the door and let people inside know they're doing that, but Anyway, Kevin is observant enough to notice the cop's gold tooth, which will come in very important later on.
Having a reunion or something?
Oh, no, my husband's brother transferred to Paris last summer, and both of his kids are still going to school here, and I guess he missed the whole family. He's giving us all this trip to Paris for the holidays so we can be together.
Kevin tells his mother he doesn't want to see any of the family ever again. And, of course, he gives him the typical parental warning of be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. Well, this is exactly what ends up happening. Thanks to a storm knocking out the power, the family's alarm clocks don't go off and they oversleep, which means that they are leaving for the airport in a huge rush. Everything's confused. There are 15 people to keep track of. There's bags to grab. There's passports to keep track of. If you've ever gone on an international trip with 15 people, you can imagine. I've never gone on a trip with that size of a group, but it is stressful to get everything ready last moment. Now, they go to meet the airport vans, rather, come to meet them, and Kevin's sister takes count of the family. The problem is a neighbor kid who happens to look a lot like Kevin, or at least be dressed just like Kevin, is mistaken for Kevin, and the count gets thrown off.
Shut up! Shut up! I got to count. 1, 2,
11, 92, 12.
Buzz, don't be a moron. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, half in this van, half in this van.
The rest of the McAllister family just barely make their flight. Meanwhile, Kevin wakes up to find that he is alone. He, not really frantically, but he starts to search the place, and he realizes that their cars are still in the garage, which makes him think that they didn't go to the airport yet. So, he wasn't aware that they were taking the airport vans. This makes him think, being a kid, that his wish came true.
I made my family disappear.
You can tell he feels guilty about this at first. Then he remembers the way his family was treating him.
Kevin, you're completely helpless. You know, Kevin, you're what the French call les incompetents.
Kevin, I'm going to feed you to my tarantula.
Kevin, you are such a disease.
There are 15 people in this house, and you're the only one who has to make trouble.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
I made my family disappear.
Kevin does what you'd expect pretty much a lot of kids to do if they find out, I have the place to myself, I'm home alone, my family's gone. I don't know if there's going to be any consequences for what I do. This is great. He goes and basically goes nuts throughout the house. He shoots things with a BB gun, takes the sled down the steps, runs around the house screaming. Basically does everything that he would be told, don't do that, if his parents were there. It's kind of interesting how he keeps calling out every now and again. You know, hey, Buzz, I'm in your room, you better come pal me. Hey, Mom, Dad, I'm watching junk on TV and eating ice cream, come stop me. He's testing if anybody's actually going to show up. I don't know if he's testing because he wants them to show up, or because he's curious if his power to make them disappear is still holding up. But I think that's a great way to show, he's still a kid. He's still reaching out, hey, am I going to get caught? He's still concerned about that. Oh, anybody come home yet? No? cool. Like, it still keep going nuts, but there's still. It's kind of like he's trying to make them come back. At the same time, he's relieved at how he can get away with everything. It's a very real, childlike response. We see later that Kevin is obviously very smart, and too many movies make the mistake of making a smart kid be a mini adult. But, you know, I salute the people who made this for making Kevin seem like an actual kid. Well, as I said, one of the things that Kevin does, going nuts running through the house, is to break into his brother's room, knocks down a series of shelves, which lets a spider loose. And again, that's a really cool detail that's going to come back later, and I'll talk about that in the second part of this review. But again, so many little details come back later. And I love that about this movie. It shows a lot of thought in the writing process. But one little detail that I didn't know about till recently, we see Kevin take a look at a picture of Buzz's girlfriend. And apparently he's not impressed.
Buzz, your girlfriend. Woof.
Here's a fun piece of trivia. That picture that Kevin looks at and laughs at, they didn't want some girl to have her feelings hurt being the one in the picture, so they actually, I wasn't tongue-tied, they actually had a boy dress up as a girl for that. And for the record, he didn't mind because he got paid well. He's like, I get money for this? Cool, whatever. Well, another of the things that Kevin does, and one of the most memorable moments from the movie, is he watches the movie that he wanted to watch with his uncle before, but his uncle's like, yeah, you're way too young for this movie. Everybody remembers this clip, and a lot of people are shocked that this isn't a real movie. Although a lot of people wish it was. They did a great job of making it look like an actual old-time gangster movie. Which is kind of funny because the guy that played Harry actually did play a lot of gangster-type roles.
Who is it?
It's me, Snakes. I got the stuff.
Leave it on the doorstep and get the hell out of here.
Even though that gangster movie isn't real, its title, Angels with Filthy Souls, actually is a kind of a parody of a gangster movie that actually is real called Angels with Dirty Faces. My sister Rue reviewed that movie on her channel, and if you're curious about that, I'll include a link to that review. I mean, check it out. It's a movie that I'd never heard of before, but maybe watching this movie will get you interested in that one. Who knows? Just something to check out. Well, there's a lot scarier things than gangster movies for Kevin. That supposed cop that he saw earlier with the gold tooth is really one of a pair of bungling burglars, and they have their sights set on his home because it's the richest place on the block.
671. Now. And that's the one, Marvin. That's the silver tuna.
It's very cheap.
Very cheap, huh? It's loaded.
Even though all the families on the block use those automatic lights to make it look like someone is home while they're all away on vacation, by posing as a cop, Marv learned all the secrets of, all the security measures, so he knows all those lights are just a fake. There's really no one there. They go to rob the place, and Kevin does exactly the right thing by turning on more lights, and they stop and hesitate and think, oh, maybe someone is home. Kevin also hides when, of course, an adult would have thought call 911. But again, for a kid, this is pretty smart thinking to have the presence of mind to do this.
leave this morning.
Unfortunately, these two aren't fooled for long because they're robbing every house on the block and they hear one of the answering machines. Yeah, remember those? Can't tell this is a 90s movie at all, right? Well, Kevin's parents call the neighbors, who are also away on vacation, hence the answering machine, to ask them to check on Kevin. Well, naturally, Harry and Marv hear this message and they know that it's safe to go back and try to steal from Kevin's home.
Chuck, this is Peter McAllister again. We're still in Paris at my brother's apartment. Let me give you the number here, okay? The country code is 33. The area code is 14. And the number is 694-876.
Hey, Harry?
Yeah?
That house we were at last night, was that the McAllisters?
Yeah.
Call me in Paris.
You're right. They're gone.
I knew they were. Silver tuna tonight.
Meanwhile, Kevin has to go out and pick up a few things. So he goes shopping, and everything's going pretty well until he sees Mr. Marley. Now, before his family left on vacation, Kevin's brother told all of them, or at least all of the kids in the family, how Mr. Marley was this evil, terrifying, psycho murderer who had murdered his wife and child, and he had them hidden in the garbage pail full of salt that he used to go out and sprinkle all the sidewalks in the neighborhood so that the ice would melt. None of this is true, but Kevin, being a kid, believes the scary stories, and he runs away from the store without paying for the toothbrush that he was trying to buy.
Oh, hon, you pay for that here. Wait, son, you have to pay for that toothbrush. Son? Son? Hey! Jimmy, stop that boy!
Mr. Marley does come off as genuinely creepy at first. The way he's filmed makes him seem like somebody who could be a real threat, but of course, we're seeing this through Kevin's viewpoint. If Kevin's afraid of Mr. Marley, we're going to see him as someone who could potentially harm Kevin. This also explains why Kevin doesn't go to the police when people try to break into his house later. He thinks he's a wanted criminal for trying to steal a toothbrush, so he's probably thinking if he calls the cops, he's going to get in trouble. Well, while he's walking away from the store, he happens to run into a familiar face, and he recognizes Harry by the gold tooth.
Merry Christmas.
Kevin puts two and two together and realizes there's something not right here because a cop wouldn't be in a utilities vehicle. This does not make sense. Kevin knows this guy's a fake. And he's smart enough to know not to lead these guys back to his place so they can't identify who he is. They can't come after him at home. He runs and hides in a church manger scene, actually disguising himself as one of the shepherds. I would have thought he would have gone inside, but whatever works, I guess. He also knows how to create a fake party when they come that night to try to rob the place again. He has it looking like everybody's having the Christmas party of the century at his place. And it's enough to fool them, at least for now. I'm always so impressed with just how brilliant Kevin is to arrange all this. Everybody remembers the traps that he sets for them later, And of course, that is the best part of the movie by far. But we can see how clever Kevin is, throughout the whole movie. Well, these two bumbling burglars decide to come back again the following day just to see if anyone's there, and Kevin uses the same video trick he used on a pizza guy earlier. He plays that movie he was watching to make it sound like someone is there and being threatening.
Get the hell out of here.
Harry and Marv decide to keep a lookout to figure out just what is going on with this place. And that's when they see Kevin coming out to cut the top off a pine tree so he'll have something to use for a Christmas tree. And that's when they start to put two and two together that they're being outsmarted by a kid.
I think we're getting scammed by a kindergartner.
Harry and Marv, who I should add are also called the Wet Bandits because Marv has the habit of leaving the water running at every place that they steal from. They go to the window and they see Kevin decorating the tree, and he sees the reflection in a glass ornament. He's smart enough to pretend that he's not alone. He calls out, "Hey Dad, can you help me decorate the tree?" And I'm really impressed that he didn't panic. He knew he was being watched, but like I said, Kevin is smart. But this time, they aren't fooled. One fun part in this scene, it's not a major scene. It's important to the plot that they realize that he is, in fact, home alone, but the main entertainment that I like in this moment is we get a title drop. For some reason, title drops are always fun.
Well, if the kid's there, the parents gotta be. He's home alone.
So far, I've mostly been focusing on Kevin. But if you've never seen this movie before, you might be wondering, what are his parents doing all this time? Have they realized he's gone yet? Or, what's going on with them? Of course, if you're from my generation or if you've seen this movie, everybody remembers the famous moment when Kevin's mom actually realizes that he's gone and the scream she lets out.
Kevin!
With it being the holiday season, it is next to impossible to get a plane. Between how busy the traveling situation is and the weather, there's no chance of getting a flight anywhere pretty much. Well, Kevin's mom actually decides to take a ride with a polka band who's headed to Milwaukee, which is in my home state of Wisconsin, and they're going near Chicago. I gotta love the Wisconsin references. The band leader mentions that they've had some big hits in Sheboygan, and this polka leader is going to look very familiar to everybody.
We're going to drive to Milwaukee. Now, I heard you had some problems. You're getting to Chicago to see your kid or something?
My son, we left and he's there.
Oh, jeez. If you have to get to Chicago, we'll gladly drive you. It's on the way to Milwaukee.
Fun fact of movie trivia: John Candy was only paid $414 for this movie. That seems insultingly low, especially when you consider the guy that played the pizza delivery boy got paid more than that. Well, the reason for that was he made this movie. He took part in this movie as a favor to Chris Columbus, who of course directed the movie and was a good friend of Candy's. And he improvised all his own dialogue, which I think is really cool. There was no script for him at all. It was completely ad-libbed, and it's very believable. It comes off as you would think that everything had been written for him, but no, he completely made the scenes flow just improvising, which I find to be very impressive. I also wanted to say I laughed seeing Kevin's mom because, well, actually, I saw Home Alone first, but years later when I saw Beetlejuice, I had to laugh. So I'm like, that's Kevin's mom. It's kind of funny that she played in both the Halloween movie and the Christmas movie. She is a very good actress, and I think she did good at this too. But yeah, I was really impressed by John Candy, and I should probably mention one other word on actors. Of course, Macaulay Culkin played Kevin. This was his major, I guess you would say, breakthrough role. And I think that for a kid his age, I've talked a lot about the character, but yeah, for the actor to act that at his age, I think he did a really impressive job. So anyway, back to the story. Kevin goes to church that night and he meets Mr. Marley, who he finds out isn't out to hurt anybody.
Merry Christmas. May I sit down?
It turns out that Mr. Marley's in church because he wants to hear his granddaughter sing. He can't see her otherwise because of her falling out with his son, and Kevin actually gives him the encouragement he needs to try to reconnect with his son. It's impressive how often a kid can actually give good advice to an adult. One part about this scene that bothered me, though, is Kevin knows now that Mr. Marley's not a bad guy. We never do find out what the falling out with his family was, but it could have been any number of things, and it's not important to the plot. But one thing that I've thought about when I rewatched it is once Kevin knows that Mr. Marley can be trusted, that he's not a bad guy, why doesn't he tell him, look, I got these two crooks after me. They're going to break into my house. Can I stay with you until I find out what's going on with my family? But, again, Kevin isn't thinking the way an adult thinks. He's realistically thinking like a child. He probably still actually thinks that his wish made his family vanish. I mean, kids that young, they can believe stuff like that can happen. He's also still worried, maybe, because of what happened with the toothbrush incident. But if you think about Kevin's experiences earlier and things that have happened, it makes sense that he would try to tackle this problem on his own. But I think the biggest reason that Kevin doesn't go to him for help is the reason he gives when he goes back home and prepares to face the wet bandits.
This is my house. I have to defend it.
This brings us up to the best part of the movie. But I knew when I started I would have to split this because, for simple length reasons, this would be an awfully long video otherwise. And let's face it, as good as the rest of the movie is, some people would want to just skip everything up until the wet bandits break into Kevin's home and hilarity ensues with all the traps that he set. So if anybody wants to just check out that will be its whole own video, and I'll be sure to label that as such. I hope you enjoyed my talk about Home Alone up to this point. I hope you'll join me in the next video. Until next time, remember the magic and have a wonderful holiday season.